Before we talk about becoming unstoppable in 2026, we need to talk about one uncomfortable truth. Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They don't fail because they aren't smart enough. They fail because they never decide why they're doing what they're doing. 2026 will not reward effort alone. It will reward clarity. It will reward courage. And it will reward people who choose to move with intention instead of drifting with excuses. Being unstoppable is not about never falling. It's about knowing why you must get back up every single time. Let's talk about how you become that person. Unstoppable people are not driven by goals. Goals are important, but they are fragile. They depend on mood, circumstances, and comfort. Meaning is different. Meaning survives exhaustion. Meaning survives failure. Meaning survives seasons when nothing seems to work. A goal can excite you for a moment, but meaning carries you when excitement is gone. That is the difference between people who start strong and people who finish strong. A goal says, I want to make more money. That sounds reasonable. It sounds responsible. But it is not powerful enough to pull you out of bed when you are tired, discouraged, or doubting yourself. Why says, I refuse to struggle the way my parents did. That statement carries history, it carries emotion, it carries memory. It carries nights you watch people you love worry in silence. It carries promises you made to yourself as a child. That kind of reason doesn't negotiate with excuses. It doesn't wait for motivation. It demands action. A goal says, I want to be successful. But success is vague, it can change shape, it can be postponed. Why says, I want my life to stand for something bigger than comfort. That is not about achievement. That is about identity. It is about deciding that your life will not be defined by ease, avoidance, or fear. It is about deciding that comfort is too small a purpose for the time you have been given. When your why is strong, motivation becomes optional. That is not a motivational quote. That is a reality. Motivation is emotional energy, and emotional energy fluctuates. Purpose does not. Purpose stays when you are tired. Purpose stays when progress is slow. Purpose stays when no one is clapping for you. That is why two people can face the same obstacle and respond completely differently. One quips, the other adapts. The difference is not talent. It is not luck. It is meaning. Think about elite athletes who come back from devastating injuries, torn ligaments, broken bones. Doctors tell them it will take months, maybe years. Some never return, but some do. And when you listen to them talk, they rarely say, I was just really disciplined. They say things like, I knew I had to come back. For some, it was proving something to themselves. For others, it was representing their family, their country, or their team. For many, it was the fear of regret, the pain of knowing they quit on themselves before they were truly done. Their reason hurt more than the rehab. Their purpose outweighed the pain. Pain is not the enemy. Pain without purpose is. When pain has no meaning, it feels pointless. When pain is connected to a reason, it becomes tolerable, even transformative. This is why people can endure extraordinary hardship when they believe it leads somewhere meaningful. History proves this. Psychology confirms it. Human beings can survive almost any how if they are clear on the why. If your reason doesn't move you emotionally, 2026 will move you off course. Life will test you. Distractions will pull at you. Comfort will tempt you. Doubt will whisper that it's easier to quit, easier to delay, easier to settle. Without a why that stirs something deep inside you, you will negotiate with those voices. You will compromise. You will tell yourself you'll start tomorrow, and tomorrow will quietly turn into another year. This is why surface level reasons don't work. Wanting approval doesn't last. Wanting to impress people fades. Wanting quick results collapses the moment things slow down. You need a reason that connects to who you are and who you refuse to become. A reason that makes quitting feel more painful than continuing. Ask yourself what pain you are no longer willing to accept. Not in theory, but in truth. Is it the pain of financial stress? The pain of wasted potential? The pain of repeating the same year over and over while telling yourself next year will be different? Is it the pain of being dependent when you want to be capable? The pain of regret when you imagine looking back and realizing you played small. Pain is already present in your life. The question is not whether you will feel pain. The question is which pain you will choose. The pain of discipline or the pain of regret. The pain of growth or the pain of staying the same. Unstoppable people choose their pain consciously instead of letting life choose it for them. Ask yourself what future you are no longer willing to delay. There is a version of you that is stronger, calmer, more capable, more disciplined. Every day you postpone becoming that person, the distance grows. Delay has a cost. It costs confidence, it costs time, it costs belief. The longer you wait, the harder it becomes to start, not because you can't, but because you slowly stop trusting yourself. Your future does not need more wishes. It needs commitment. And commitment begins with clarity. When you are clear about why you must move forward, speed becomes secondary. You don't rush. You don't panic. You don't chase shortcuts. You move steadily because you know exactly what you're moving toward. That answer, your real answer, not the polished one you'd say out loud, becomes your fuel. It becomes the voice that speaks when excuses appear. It becomes the anchor when results are slow. It becomes the reason you show up when no one is watching. And once you have that kind of fuel, you stop asking, can I do this? And start asking, how could I not? That is where unstoppable momentum begins. Motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes without warning. Some days it shows up loud and confident, and other days it disappears completely. If your progress depends on how motivated you feel, then your progress will always be inconsistent. That is not a personal flaw. That is human nature. Feelings change, energy fluctuates, life interrupts. The problem is not that motivation fades. The problem is building a life that requires it to stay. Systems are unstoppable because they do not argue with your emotions. They do not care how inspired you feel. They simply create a path that is easy to follow and hard to avoid. Most people wait to feel ready because it feels responsible. It feels logical, but ready is a feeling, and feelings are not reliable decision makers. Unstoppable people understand this early. They don't wait for clarity, confidence, or excitement. They act first, and those things follow. Think about how many times you have told yourself, I'll start when I feel motivated, or I'll begin once I'm in the right mindset. That moment rarely arrives, and when it does, it never stays. People who build momentum do the opposite. They design their lives so action is the default, not the exception. They remove friction from the right behaviors and add friction to the wrong ones. They don't depend on willpower, they conserve it. Research consistently shows that habits formed through consistent systems are far more effective than relying on willpower alone. Willpower is a limited resource. It weakens with stress, fatigue, and decision overload. Structure, on the other hand, carries you when willpower is gone. This is why people with the most demanding responsibilities often appear the most disciplined. It is not because they have stronger willpower. It is because they have fewer decisions to make. Look at the most productive professionals in any field. They do not wake up asking themselves how they feel about working today. They already know what comes next. They rely on routines, morning rituals that signal focus, time blocks that protect their priorities, non-negotiables that eliminate internal debate. They remove the question of should I and replace it with this is what I do. This is why routines feel boring to people who are addicted to excitement. But boredom is not the enemy of progress. Inconsistency is. The extraordinary is built on the ordinary done repeatedly. When you create a system, you stop asking yourself to be heroic every day. You allow yourself to be human and still move forward. In 2026, your success will not be decided by your strongest days. Strong days are easy. Anyone can perform when energy is high and obstacles are low. Your future will be decided by your weakest days. The days when you are tired, distracted, discouraged, or overwhelmed. The days when quitting feels reasonable and delaying feels justified. Systems exist for those days. A system does not need you to feel confident. It only needs you to show up, even poorly, even imperfectly. A short workout is still a workout. A single focused hour still moves the needle. One page written still breaks inertia. Momentum is not built through massive effort. It is built through repeated engagement. Consider how pilots fly planes through turbulence. They don't rely on instinct or emotion. They rely on checklists. When conditions become unpredictable, structure becomes safety. Your life works the same way. When stress increases, when uncertainty rises, when motivation drops, systems become your stabilizer. This is also why people burn out when they try to overhaul everything at once. They aim for intensity instead of sustainability. Systems are not designed to impress. They are designed to last. Small, repeatable actions performed consistently outperform sporadic bursts of effort every time. This is not opinion. It is proven across health, productivity, learning, and performance psychology. Creating systems that work when you don't feel like working means designing for your worst self, not your best self. It means assuming you will be tired sometimes, distracted sometimes, unmotivated sometimes. And instead of judging yourself for that, you plan around it, you lower the barrier to starting. You decide in advance what good enough looks like on hard days. Unstoppable people do not ask, do I feel like doing this today? They ask, what is the smallest action that keeps the system alive? That mindset removes pressure while preserving progress. It turns consistency into identity. Momentum is built when action becomes automatic. When starting no longer requires emotional negotiation, when you trust the system more than the mood you are in, that is when progress compounds quietly. Days stack, weeks stack. Confidence grows not because you felt inspired, but because you proved you could move without inspiration. And once you experience that, you stop chasing motivation altogether. You stop waiting for the perfect moment. You stop being at the mercy of how you feel. You realize that the people who look unstoppable are not driven by constant fire. They are driven by structure, clarity, and commitment to systems that carry them forward even on days when they feel nothing at all. Confidence is a result, not a requirement. That truth alone changes how you approach growth. Most people believe they need confidence before they take action, so they wait. They wait to feel ready, capable, or certain. What they don't realize is that confidence is built after action, not before it. Waiting for confidence is like waiting for muscle before going to the gym. It doesn't work that way. People often look at unstoppable individuals and assume they were confident from the beginning. That's a comforting story because it allows others to excuse their own hesitation. But it's a lie. The truth is far less glamorous and far more empowering. Unstoppable people start unsure. They start imperfect. What separates them is not how they feel, but what they do despite how they feel. They act before confidence shows up. They move while doubt is still present. They take steps without guarantees. And each step, no matter how small, leaves evidence behind. Evidence that they can follow through. Evidence that they can survive discomfort. Evidence that they are capable of more than they thought. That evidence slowly turns into confidence. Confidence comes from kept promises, especially the promises you make to yourself. Every time you say you will do something and then don't, trust erodes, not with the world, but within yourself. Over time, that erosion becomes self-doubt, not because you are incapable, but because you have trained yourself not to believe your own words. On the other hand, every time you keep a promise, even a small one, trust is restored. The mind begins to associate your intentions with action. That internal trust becomes the foundation of confidence, not hype, not affirmations, proof. Think about someone who transformed their body. Before the change, they likely felt insecure, frustrated, maybe even embarrassed. They didn't wake up one morning suddenly confident. They woke up committed. They followed a routine. They showed up when it was uncomfortable. They trained on days when progress felt invisible. Slowly, something shifted. Their posture changed. Their energy changed. Their belief changed. Confidence followed consistency, not the other way around. This pattern applies everywhere. Careers, relationships, skills, leadership. People don't gain confidence by imagining success. They gain it by stacking small wins, by doing what they said they would do when no one was watching, by choosing discipline over comfort. Discipline is often misunderstood. It's not rigidity. It's not forcing yourself to suffer. Discipline is simply the decision to act in alignment with your values, regardless of your mood. It's choosing long-term respect over short-term relief. Every time you show up when it's uncomfortable, you send your brain a powerful message: I can be trusted. Neuroscience supports this. The brain builds self-efficacy, the belief in your ability to execute actions through repeated experiences of follow-through. You don't think your way into confidence, you behave your way into it. Discomfort is not a sign you are doing something wrong. It is often a sign you are doing something new. Growth requires friction. The problem is not discomfort. The problem is interpreting discomfort as danger instead of development. Unstoppable people reframe it. They see discomfort as evidence of expansion. In 2026, stop asking, do I believe in myself? That question puts pressure on your emotions. Emotions are unreliable. Some days you will feel strong, other days you won't. Belief will fluctuate, discipline does not. Start asking, did I keep my word today? That question puts the focus on behavior. It shifts the metric of success from feelings to actions. You may not feel confident, but you can still be disciplined. You can still show up, you can still do the work. This shift is powerful because it gives you control. You can't always control how you feel. You can control what you do next. And every disciplined action becomes a vote for the person you are becoming. Over time, something remarkable happens. The voice of doubt gets quieter, not because it disappears, but because it has less evidence. The voice of confidence gets louder, not because you forced it, but because you earned it. You stop needing external validation because you have internal proof. Discipline also simplifies decision-making. When something is a non-negotiable, you don't debate it, you don't negotiate with excuses, you don't wait for the right mood. You act. This reduces mental fatigue and builds momentum. Momentum builds identity. Identity fuels confidence. Many people avoid discipline because they fear it will limit their freedom. In reality, discipline creates freedom. The freedom of trust in yourself, the freedom of capability, the freedom of not being ruled by impulse or fear. Confidence without discipline is fragile. Discipline without confidence is still powerful. When you choose discipline consistently, confidence becomes inevitable. Not loud confidence, not performative confidence, quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need to prove anything, the kind that shows up in how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you decide. This is how unstoppable people are built. Not through belief alone, but through behavior. Not through waiting, but through doing. One kept promise at a time. They construct a foundation that doesn't shake when things get hard. And once you experience that kind of confidence, the kind that comes from honoring your word, you stop chasing it. You realize it was never something you needed to find. It was something you needed to build. Most people quit because they expect fast results in a slow process. They begin with excitement and hope, but when the results don't arrive on schedule, doubt takes over. They assume something is wrong, either with the process or with themselves. In reality, nothing is wrong at all. Growth rarely announces itself in the moment. It happens quietly, beneath the surface, long before it becomes visible. Unstoppable people understand a truth that most people struggle to accept. Progress is often invisible before it becomes undeniable. They don't panic when effort doesn't immediately translate into results. They don't measure success only by what they can see. They trust the process because they understand how growth actually works. Look at how learning happens in real life. When a child learns to walk, they don't improve in a straight line. They fall repeatedly, they wobble. For a long time, it looks like nothing is changing. Then one day they walk across the room. The progress was not sudden. It was hidden. The breakthrough only looks sudden because the work happened quietly. Data on skill mastery supports this. Research in learning, psychology, and performance science shows that meaningful breakthroughs often occur after long periods of plateau. This is known as nonlinear progress. Growth is not constant, it comes in waves. Long stretches of apparent stagnation are often followed by sudden leaps in ability. The plateau is not a failure phase, it is a preparation phase. This is why most people stop right before the breakthrough. They misinterpret the plateau as proof that the effort isn't working. They expect constant feedback and steady validation. When that doesn't arrive, they assume it's time to change direction, start over, or quit altogether. What they don't realize is that the plateau is often the final test of commitment. Unstoppable people stay. They keep showing up when improvement feels slow. They continue practicing when recognition is absent. They remain consistent when results are delayed. Not because it feels good, but because they understand that compounding requires time. Every meaningful outcome follows this pattern. Businesses take years before they appear successful. Relationships deepen over time, not in moments. Physical transformations take months before they are visible, even though the work begins on day one. Most of the work happens when no one is watching and nothing seems to be happening. If you want to be unstoppable in 2026, you must fall in love with patience. Not passive patience, but active patience. The kind that keeps moving even when progress is slow. The kind that continues to invest without immediate return. The kind that trusts time as a partner, not an enemy. Patience is often misunderstood as waiting. It is not. Patience is sustained effort without immediate reward. It is staying committed without needing constant reassurance. It is choosing to believe in the long-term outcome even when short-term evidence is scarce. You don't need validation. Validation is temporary. It fades quickly and creates dependence. When you rely on applause, you stop when the applause stops. Persistence is different. Persistence is internal. It doesn't require an audience. It doesn't ask for permission. It continues regardless of recognition. This is why the long game always favors those who stay. Time rewards consistency. Time magnifies effort. Time exposes shortcuts and amplifies fundamentals. People who rush often burn out. People who persist often outlast. Unstoppable people shift their focus from outcomes to processes. They stop asking, am I winning yet? And start asking, am I showing up today? That shift changes everything. It removes pressure. It reduces anxiety. It makes progress sustainable. There is also freedom in playing the long game. When you stop chasing immediate results, you stop being reactive. You make better decisions. You are less tempted by shortcuts that compromise integrity. You build something solid instead of something fast. The long game also builds resilience. Each day you stay when quitting feels easier, you strengthen your capacity to endure. That endurance becomes an advantage. While others start and stop, you continue. While others chase trends, you deepen your foundation. Many people underestimate what consistency over time can do because they overestimate what urgency can accomplish. Urgency burns hot and fast. Consistency burns steady and long. One creates flashes of effort. The other creates transformation. Think of how interest compounds in finance. Small regular investments made consistently over time outperform large, irregular ones. Personal growth follows the same rule. Small actions compounded daily create extraordinary outcomes. But only if you stay long enough to see them. Unstoppable people are not in a hurry to prove themselves. They are committed to becoming something real. They understand that the best results often arrive quietly after the work is done, not during it. They let time do what time does best, reward patience. When you commit to the long game, you stop being discouraged by slow days. You stop being distracted by comparisons. You stop questioning your path every time progress feels invisible. You develop a deeper confidence rooted in persistence rather than performance. Staying is a skill. It requires trust, discipline, and perspective. But it is also a choice to believe that today's effort matters, even if today shows no evidence of it. A choice to remain when others leave. A choice to let time work in your favor. That is how unstoppable people are built, not by speed, but by staying power. Support feels good. It soothes, it reassures you, it tells you everything will be okay, and there is nothing wrong with support. Everyone needs it, but support alone does not change lives. Comfort does not create growth. Standards do. Standards are what challenge you to rise when staying the same would be easier. Standards are what quietly shape who you become over time. Unstoppable people understand this distinction. They don't just look for people who make them feel better. They look for environments that make them better. They seek places, teams, and relationships where excellence is expected, not optional, where effort is normal, where excuses are uncomfortable, not because those environments are harsh, but because they are honest. Encouragement without expectation can become a trap. When people constantly reassure you without challenging you, they may protect your feelings but limit your potential. Growth requires friction. It requires being around people who are willing to tell you the truth even when it's inconvenient. People who hold you to what you said you wanted, not what you feel like doing in the moment. Look at elite teams in sports, business, or the military. They do not tolerate average behavior, not because they lack compassion, but because standards create excellence. When everyone knows the standard, no one has to guess what is acceptable. The standard becomes the culture. And culture shapes behavior far more powerfully than motivation ever could. In those environments, no one is personally attacked for falling short. But no one is allowed to stay there either. Mistakes are corrected, effort is expected, preparation is assumed. Over time, people either rise to the standard or remove themselves. And that is not cruelty, that is clarity. Your life works the same way. The people you spend the most time with quietly shape what you tolerate, what you strive for, and what you believe is possible. Not through lectures, but through norms. If the people around you normalize complaining, you will complain more. If they normalize discipline, you will find yourself becoming more disciplined. Behavior is contagious. Look at your circle honestly. Do the people around you challenge your thinking, or do they reinforce your excuses? Do they ask you hard questions, or do they help you justify staying comfortable? Do they celebrate growth, or do they feel threatened by it? These questions are uncomfortable, but they are necessary. Many people confuse loyalty with proximity. They stay in environments that no longer fit who they are becoming because they fear judgment, guilt, or loneliness. But growth often requires distance, not from people you care about, but from patterns that no longer serve you. In 2026, choose proximity over comfort. Proximity means being close to people who are doing what you want to do. People who live with discipline, integrity, and purpose. People whose standards force you to level up simply by being around them. Comfort feels safe in the short term, but it keeps you small in the long term. Choose people who raise the bar, not just your mood. There is a difference between someone who makes you laugh and someone who makes you better. Ideally, you want both, but if you have to choose growth. Lauder fades, standards compound. Your environment will either make you unstoppable or keep you stuck. There is no neutral. Even silence is influence. Even inaction is conditioning. If you are in a space where mediocrity is normal, excellence will feel uncomfortable. If you are in a space where excellence is normal, mediocrity will feel uncomfortable. Unstoppable people intentionally design their environments. They don't leave it to chance. They choose who they learn from, who they listen to, and who they allow to influence their thinking. They understand that willpower is weak against environment, but environment is powerful against willpower. This also applies to what you consume. The conversations you listen to, the content you absorb, the standards you expose your mind to daily. If you constantly consume negativity, shortcuts, and excuses, your thinking will follow. If you consume discipline, growth, and responsibility, your thinking will rise. Raising your standards does not mean becoming arrogant or disconnected. It means becoming intentional. It means deciding that your future matters more than temporary comfort. It means understanding that being challenged is not an attack. It is an investment. Unstoppable people welcome standards because standards remove ambiguity. They clarify what is required. They replace guesswork with expectation. And when expectations are clear, performance improves. You do not need everyone to support you. You need the right people to challenge you. You need environments that reflect who you want to become, not who you used to be. You need standards that stretch you just enough to grow without breaking you. When you choose higher standards, you choose a different path, a path that may feel lonely at first, a path that requires courage, but it is also the path that leads somewhere real, somewhere earned. And once you experience what it feels like to live in alignment with higher standards, you stop settling, you stop shrinking, you stop apologizing for wanting more. Because you realize that excellence is not a personality trait. It is a standard you live by every day. Unstoppable people don't avoid failure. They study it, they look at it closely instead of running from it. They don't treat it as a verdict on who they are, but as evidence of what they tried. This distinction changes everything. Most people fear failure because they attach their identity to outcomes. When something goes wrong, they don't think, that didn't work. They think, I'm not good enough. Unstoppable people separate the event from the self. Failure is not proof that you're incapable. It's proof that you're in motion. You cannot fail at something you never attempt. Failure only belongs to people who are willing to act. The problem is not failing. The problem is believing failure means stop. In reality, failure often means adjust. Look at how progress works in any meaningful area of life. Learning a new skill, building a business, improving health, developing leadership, none of it happens without mistakes. The first version is rarely the right version. The early attempts are often clumsy. That's not incompetence. That's learning. Data consistently shows that entrepreneurs who fail early and learn from it are more likely to succeed long-term than those who avoid risk entirely. Why? Because failure provides information that success cannot. Success tells you what worked this time. Failure tells you what needs refinement. It highlights weak points. It reveals assumptions. It forces clarity. People who avoid failure also avoid growth. They choose safety over progress. And while that feels comfortable in the short term, it creates stagnation in the long term. The cost of avoiding failure is not peace. It's unrealized potential. Every setback carries information, but information only helps if you're willing to examine it. Most people experience failure emotionally instead of analytically. They feel embarrassed, discouraged, angry, ashamed. Those emotions are natural, but they become dangerous when they block learning. When emotion takes control, lessons are missed. Unstoppable people pause and ask better questions. What did this teach me? Not, why does this always happen to me? But, what is this showing me? What must change? Not everything, just the part that didn't work. And what must stay? Because even in failure, some things are working. Discipline, effort, courage. Those don't disappear just because the outcome wasn't ideal. When you remove emotion from failure, you turn pain into progress. That doesn't mean ignoring how it feels. It means not letting feelings decide what it means. Pain without reflection is suffering. Pain with reflection becomes instruction. Think about how athletes review game footage. They don't take missed shots personally. They don't label themselves failures because of one bad performance. They analyze positioning, timing, decision-making. They separate behavior from identity. That mindset allows improvement. If they made it personal, progress would stop. Your life deserves the same objectivity. A failed attempt does not erase your ability. It refines it. A setback does not define your future. It informs that the faster you can extract the lesson, the faster you can move forward stronger. Unstoppable thinking reframes the meaning of failure entirely. Failure becomes feedback. Feedback is neutral. It is neither good nor bad. It simply tells the truth. And truth, while sometimes uncomfortable, is always useful. Many people repeat the same mistakes because they never pause to learn from them. They rush to the next attempt without reflection, carrying the same blind spots with them. Others quit entirely, convinced the failure means they were wrong to try. Both responses miss the opportunity. Progress belongs to those who stay curious, who remain open, who are willing to admit, This didn't work the way I expected, and that's okay. Curiosity replaces judgment. Learning replaces shame. This mindset also builds resilience. When failure is no longer threatening, fear loses its power. You become more willing to experiment, more willing to take calculated risks, more willing to grow. You stop playing not to lose and start playing to learn. Failure handled well accelerates maturity. It sharpens decision-making. It deepens self-awareness. It strengthens problem solving. Over time, people who have failed thoughtfully often outperform those who have never been tested, not because they are smarter, but because they are more experienced. Unstoppable people don't romanticize failure, but they don't fear it either. They respect it, they understand that each misstep carries a message, and they are disciplined enough to listen. This also requires humility. The willingness to say, I was wrong, not as a weakness, but as a strength. Growth demands honesty. You cannot improve what you refuse to examine. You cannot correct what you deny. When setbacks happen, and they will, the question is never whether you are capable. The question is whether you are willing to learn. Capability grows through correction. Wisdom grows through reflection. Over time, this approach creates momentum. Each failure leaves you better informed. Each adjustment increases precision. Each lesson compounds. Eventually, what once felt like constant setbacks begins to look like steady refinement. That is unstoppable thinking, not avoiding mistakes, but extracting value from them. Not collapsing under failure, but converting it into feedback. Not letting pain define you, but allowing it to shape you. And when you live this way, failure loses its power to stop you. It becomes part of the process, part of the path. A teacher instead of a threat. That is how progress becomes inevitable. The future is not created by hopes. Hope is passive. It waits, it wishes, it assumes that time alone will produce change. But time does not create transformation, identity does. The person you are becoming, consciously or unconsciously, is what shapes your future. Every choice you make is a vote for that identity. Unstoppable people understand this deeply. They don't wake up every morning asking, what should I do today? That question leads to hesitation, overthinking, and inconsistency. Instead, they ask a more powerful question, who must I become? That question simplifies everything. Once identity is clear, behavior follows. If the future version of you is disciplined, then discipline is not something you occasionally practice. It is something you live now. You don't wait for circumstances to change before you change. You act disciplined before you feel disciplined. You structure your day. You honor your commitments. You show up even when it's inconvenient because that's who you are becoming. If the future version of you is courageous, courage is not a trait you wait to develop someday. It is a decision you practice today. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is movement in spite of it. Every time you choose the harder conversation, the uncomfortable action, the honest path, you reinforce that identity. You become a person who acts bravely by acting bravely. Neuroscience supports this approach. Identity-based habits stick longer than outcome-based goals because the brain seeks consistency between belief and behavior. When you identify as someone who shows up, your actions naturally align with that belief. When you identify as someone who quits when it gets hard, your actions follow that pattern too. The brain is constantly trying to confirm who you think you are. This is why goals alone often fail. Goals focus on results. Identity focuses on being. Results can be delayed. Being is immediate. You can act like the person you want to become today, regardless of outcomes. That sense of control builds momentum. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your identity. In moments of stress, fatigue, or uncertainty, you don't reach for aspirations. You default to who you believe you are. If your identity is weak, your actions will be fragile. If your identity is strong, your actions will be consistent. Unstoppable people decide once. They decide who they're becoming and stop renegotiating that decision daily. Most people live in constant negotiation with themselves. I'll do it tomorrow, just this once. I deserve a break. Those negotiations slowly erode identity. They turn strong intentions into fragile habits. Deciding once removes friction, it removes debate, it replaces choice with commitment. When you know who you are, behavior becomes simpler. Not easier, but clearer. You don't ask if you feel like it, you act because it aligns with who you are becoming. Identity is shaped through repetition. Small actions done consistently send powerful signals to the brain. Each time you act in alignment with your chosen identity, you reinforce it. Each time you act against it, you weaken it. This is not about perfection. It is about direction. Unstoppable people focus on daily proof. Not grand gestures, not dramatic transformations, daily evidence. Showing up when it's ordinary, choosing integrity when no one is watching, following through when excuses are available. Those moments shape identity more than any big win ever could. This approach also builds self-respect. When your actions match your values, internal conflict fades. You trust yourself, you move with clarity. Confidence becomes a byproduct of alignment, not an emotion you chase. In 2026, decide once, then prove it daily, not to the world, but to yourself. Proof does not need to be loud, it needs to be consistent. Identity is not declared, it is demonstrated. You are becoming someone whether you choose it or not. The only question is whether that process is intentional. When you choose your identity consciously, you reclaim control, you stop drifting, you stop reacting, you start leading yourself. And when identity leads, outcomes follow. Quietly, steadily, inevitably. Becoming unstoppable is not about doing everything. It's about doing the right things consistently, intentionally, and courageously. 2026 is coming whether you're ready or not. The question is not, will it change you? The question is, will you rise to meet it or let it pass like every other year? Decide now. Commit fully. And become the person your future is waiting for, because unstoppable isn't a trait, it's a choice.